Okay, how not to install a car lift. We're going to critique this guy's video here on the tube. Oh my gosh, it's pretty bad. Here we go. We're going to watch, so that's who it is. And I'm going to pause this for a second. And we're going to go back 10 seconds here, and then we're going to slow it down to watch what you need to see on the wall. All right. He has anchorage here, on the wall, is floor, and over here. This lift is going to come away from the wall, he states. And it looks like a little deflection there, but go ahead.
Lift, unfortunately, it's got a major flaw in it, and it is tried to kill me.
So one of the things I'll advance in this video when I listen to it is he didn't have much penetration in his with his anchor. Okay, but when he showed the sample, I'll speak up the thing. He may say he didn't have much penetration, but the anchor, the concrete, didn't fail, which he thinks it did. But I'll explain in a second.
We have to do some repair to it. Check out the video.
All right, right here is where the wall, where it's going to move away from the wall. This is the only time he does it, a quick sample of it, so I have to slow it down for you, and then we'll get back to regular speed. Even I didn't catch it besides a little bit of motion. One to the right. Okay, so that kicked into the right off the wall there, as you might have seen. Let's look to the left. Okay. So then he puts the lift back down. What's the right wall? Right wall. Right wall top. It's down on the ground. Okay, let's just change the speed.
With that post moving, this one post moving, going that direction, that means that these bolts holding down.
He's saying these bolts have failed, and yet, as he states that, I don't see any failure indicators right there of failure. It looks like it rotated back onto the floor. So you had a nut there, a plate there, and then as it rotated back down, back onto the floor, and the bolts seem to have come down with it. They don't seem to be elevated. The nut and bolts don't seem to be elevated off the plate. Okay, we did see deflection. Remember, these things can flex on their own up top, but the one to the left did not. So let's go back to, okay, just because I didn't see it doesn't mean it didn't happen. Let's go with, it drove it back down. It picked it, pulled it up a bit, and then drove it back down. Problem is, he's also going to state at one point in the video that this is the one to the far right. I think he's stating that this is the one that lost his grip. Well, there's two more it's got to bypass. And then they got one up front here. That's an interesting beast. And one up front of there, I guess. I thought that his lift would have been like that. You know, hole, and then one about here. And the front is usually not needed. I'll give it away already. I was going to wait for a minute. Why is the front one needed here, guys? Why did they put that there? Let's get back to the lift.
On this post are not strong enough. Now, I gotta tell you, I had a gut feeling that 4 inches was not enough. I didn't trust my gut. I followed the instructions of the manufacturer. I called the manufacturer to double check things to make sure everything's done. I torqued it down the way it should have been, and it still failed on me. Here's the deal. I should have known and I should have trusted that my gut says at least 6 inches of embedment for these bolts, and I didn't get that. So I'm going to have to tear these things out, and it's going to suck.
So this is where the misnomer is about the 6 inches of embedment. 6 inches of embedment is going to give you a better pullout than 3 inches. All right. So this is false based on the anchor I'm going to observe. The anchor is, so you guys know, it's the wedge anchor. So it's wherever once it wedges on the wall, that's it. It doesn't know if it's at 1 inch below the surface or 6 inches. it's wedged. It's locked into place. If you're able to torque it to the value they want you to torque it at, I don't know, 35 pounds, 70 pounds, then your wedge anchor is locked in. It's not going to slide up any further. So your embedment has nothing to do with that. Now, when it comes down to the pressure and failure, I'll explain that in a part of the video coming up here.
But you guys are going to follow along with the adventure and see how I do it. Hopefully it's not going to take me too long. I've been thinking about 4 inches of embedment when I do it. It's going to suck. Hey, we got the library at your local.
So now this is the floor. This is the machine, the device there, the lift, right? Hole, and then hole, and then probably a sister hole on the other side. As I look at the floor around here, as I look at the floor around, I don't see fractures. All right, I don't see fractures. So, and he had to cut off. He saw cut them off, ground them off. So they didn't just slip out. All right, so check. These are stable. All right, this is the one that was over there, and he's going to repair it anyway. He's going to replace it anyway, not repair it because it wasn't broken, but now he has to repair it because he cut them. So again, you see the other part there. You do not see it blown. You don't see any fractures around here. He said he used epoxy. Well, he's going to say he used epoxy. That looks like epoxy there. All right. I do not see epoxy on that one over there. The one he has over there, I don't see it like this. Let me go continue.
24. 24.
Scrubbing. All right. Oh, he's still taking that off. All right. So then he takes it up. So he uses a hammer, jackhammer, and a hammer, literally, and he takes it up.
Ask questions, do some research, and give it a try. Worst thing you do is fail and try it again.
I think it goes the other one. Nope. Yeah, it does. Okay. Let's back that up, and let's look at the, I'm going to pause.
Not too bad. I've never done this before.
Yeah, we know.
So if you've never done something before, ask questions, do some research, and give it a try. Worst thing you do is fail and try it again.
Yeah, it's life on it, buddy. Don't give it a try without some research. All right, so I don't see any fractures here, all right? He just made that fracture, and there's the other bolt. I don't see any fractures. I see no surface fractures. That's critical here, guys. Critical on what I'm going to get to. Let me back this up again so we can see it just before he hammers it.
Not too bad. I've never done this before.
I want to catch it. Hold on.
So if you've never done something before, ask questions, do some research, and give it a try. Worst thing you do is fail and try it again.
I want to get him before he fractures it. All right, that's as close as I'm going to get. So I don't see any fractures at this point here. That's the other connection. Now, of course, he's fracturing it there. Let's let it go. Okay. So let's see what's the statement.
It didn't go below the rebar. That's part of the problem over here. That's why it failed.
He says part of the problem is rebar. That's bullshit. All right. Don't listen to some people tell you bullshit stuff. Because he said he never did it before. So how can he start telling people why it failed? All right. He's full of shit. Footing hole was cleaned and made 3.5 inches deeper. Just arbitrarily 3.5 inches deeper because he thinks everything works just by the depth there. Now, we're going to get to this rebar thing he's going to do. I'm going to fast forward. This is disgusting.
It goes inside the concrete.
Hold on.
Right hand. I'm going to try to figure out why.
He's trying to figure out why. And he stated this is the one that failed. He states this is where it was. And when he secured it, it went to this position. Ultimate securing. All right, it's going to get a little closer image, so I want to get to the outside image when he zooms in.
So when I put these anchor bolts in, they were embedded 4 inches. And the blue line right here, or black line probably in the video, looks like black, but that's 4 inches. As you can see, it was all the way embedded, and it broke off right here. But as you can see, this moved up.
All right. the breaking off right here, he stated, right? That this broke off right here. All right, it's when you put the hammer in, he pounded with a hammer, and this is the breaking off in that direction down there. More than likely, that's what's going on. It's a downward break. As this fails, if you're going to doing a pull-out test, I would see fracture like this. Not down here, of course. It would be where right here? No, it's not connected there. How about here? No. Well, right here is where this is wedging. So that's the wedge point. This is what's left. This is your securement. What can stitch, what this can stay together here to this side. And that's a cone, if you will. And the cone is still in place here. I'm looking at it. It's in place. This anchor did not fail. It's a wedge type anchor. A shield expands. This comes up, drives a wedge into this shield here, the shape of the shield here. And these little knots on the outside get driven into the wall. Friction that's created, pressure with the torque and locking this in place gets you that. So now this is that cone, would be like that. Let's back out and let the video play.
And I measured that. That's 7/8 of an inch. So those anchors.
So even here, let's see if I can give you a little bit. So here we don't see the fracture. There's no fracture. He drove his jackhammer in there and fractured it, luckily, like this, so we can look at it. But I don't see this cone failing. I don't see any fractures up top, is where you would look for the fractures up top. I don't see the epoxy that he's going to talk about. The manufacturer told him to put in there. He said the manufacturer said put epoxy in there. I don't see the epoxy. The epoxy would have gave him full embedment, and it would have changed all of this to a securement on two sides, all the way around the hole. So if on two sides here in the image you would see, but all the way around the hole, epoxy would do it. I don't see any epoxy in this hole. He states the manufacturer told him to put epoxy, and he's never going to do that again because he didn't. Manufacturer basically duped him. He's stating there's no epoxy on this. There's no epoxy on that. I know what it looks like. I pull my rebar test, pull out with the stuff with epoxy. It looks gray. It's bonded. It's disgusting. It's really. It's easy to come off, and it's no problem at all. So no, I find that to be a misstatement on himself, saying he
failed. And that was on the right-hand side, looking at it from the front of the truck. So that's the one that leaned in the most. This was actually on the back side, as indicated by the caulking against the wall. That tells me why this failed, is the anchor is not being embedded correctly. Okay, these concrete anchors work just like the anchors you put on.
Same thing with this one, guys. Now, can you tell me where it's going to do its work? Well, you see, it's a hole is bigger here, so you're going to get no work out of that. How about down here? It's just a little bit of friction right there initially when you drive it down. It plows down, and you do a reversal and come back. The wedge shape wedges it out. But the anchor in this design is right there. And then that's where it bites. When it finally gets your torque, you get your final position. That will be your cone at this point. All right, you can go 30 to 45 degrees roughly. And this would matter how good this concrete is bonding. And a failure would look at the top. You would see the failure near the top. And the wedge would fracture it, similar to that.
Your wall, they hang up a picture. It goes inside the concrete, and this bolt expands as you tighten it down.
So just so you know, even though a lot of the force is going up like that, so it's also it's a cone. So I would do you better like this. So there's your force.
Or torque it. As by this picture, you can see it's torqued and provides an expansion in there and holds that anchor into the concrete. Now, if you look at these expansion anchors that I pulled out of the concrete, they did not expand. They gave me what was called a false torque reading. And I believe that false torque reading was caused by the epoxy that I used at the manufacturer's recommendation.
There's no epoxy on here. There's no epoxy on this. Question mark. I'm trying to zoom in. Wait for it for a second. This is epoxy. That's epoxy. Right there, I think, is epoxy. When I pull these out, I often can flake them back off, the epoxy. It's pretty hard, so hard it's brittle. You can take it off. This one's questioning me if he clean that up. But I saw the epoxy at the top. This one he had to cut off. It was so easy to come out that he had to saw cut it. You know, it doesn't make sense, does it? Make up your mind. You had to saw cut it or not. Let's look at this a little deeper. Yeah, this is what epoxy looks like when it's stuck on the threads.
Inside the holes in conjunction with these bolts. I won't do that again. Alrighty.
Now, in conjunction with it. Now, let's think about him doing, let's say he did epoxy. All right, so you epoxy this. Some epoxies take 24 hours, right? Some of them take 10 hours. Even though they'll tell you it's working, you know, you can do certain X amount with it in 3 hours, etc. And 3 hours, etc. Give them the full set time before attempting to bolt it. I'm doing an experiment now, not full set time. I think I waited 4 hours on one, and I tested it, and I got values that were very low for the epoxy. Now I'm doing the pull out, maybe tomorrow, next day, of the one I allowed to set for 24 hours. Same material, same epoxy, same bolt setup, same concrete. And now I'll get the reading on that. It's just my data stack. But you won't get you will not get the same value you'll get in 10 hours. You'll get a much greater bond. It depends on the moisture of the concrete, etc., how damp it is. And let's go.
I think that's the cause of our failure and why these bolts pulled out of the concrete.
I think maybe dude torqued it too soon and caused an initial set break. So it's still setting. The epoxy is still setting around this. And he got impatient and started bolting it. And this had an initial, he got it, whatever he did. He started snugging it up, put it in place maybe, because he thought it was hard enough. And then you go to torque on it, and you've already created a push brake, a push-pull brake. So first you're driving it down, creates a bypass, a friction brake of the epoxies. And then you put your lift in, and then you crank it down, and you get your torque value. Well, that broken up material, if you will, even dust, can give you a false high reading of torque. And then you put the load test it even heavier with, say, a truck. And then you get the deflection. But in his case, his damn lift is so tall, a cross brace wouldn't hurt that lift.
Back at it. All right, here we go.
This gets disgusting now.
All right.
So then he puts these dowels in here. These dowels. Doesn't look like he epoxied them. Just trail them and friction fit them. I don't see any extra epoxy bleeding out. And he threw a piece of rebar across here. I don't know what that's about. And then he put the rebar like this with his wire tie loosely, not really connected, not really bypassing. It's all he did was for the luck of him, I hope it works. What's stopping the overturning will be these, for his pad overturning from him killing himself still, or it's going to be these guys here. All right. This is going to practically it will tie the pad into some degree. He did put it in the middle. You will get some value out of this. But it's not going to be what he thinks it is. His mix is terrible. Apparently his compaction method is square hammer. See, square hammer. Or what is that? Not a square hammer, but a, I don't know, what's some type of, I don't know what that is. But it obviously, see the imprint? It can obviously be compacted better. Now, so he thinks everything's going to be done in 6 inches. And again, to stop this pad from overturning. So here's the pad he's just put in there. Here's a lift. What stops us from rotating out of the hole? Just those dowels. And this one here pins it here too. So there's a rotation this way. So as it tries to rotate down, it's going to run into this dowel. As it tries to flip up, it runs into this dowel. All the torque action is done in the concrete inside here. Yep. Luck will be flying with this guy for a minute. Sometimes you just need luck, though.
If These holes are right around 7 inches deep for the pad. I got my rebar in there, and you're wondering why it's not tied to the top. Well, we want that rebar to be more in the middle of the pad. That's why it's drooped down a little bit, so it's going to be right going through the middle of the pad.
And that's bullshit saying we want. Was he French, or is he one of those, or is he speaking pronouns? You know, we. Is that the pronoun stuff? Anyway, look at this damn thing. Just loose rebars. These will not be interacting together.
And it's going to tie in between the two, so we're good to go there.
Let's look at the other one now.
Same thing
This one is just as disgusting.
over here.
All right, so same deal.
There.
He's going to get lucky with luck. Remember, sometimes luck is what you need. This is luck if this works, because remember the overturning again. The column wants to overturn. It's got to go through these dowels. It will want to rotate. It's also pinned inside here. It'll be pinned there. Some of this under concrete going under will help to some degree. That still has to break it off. The rebar placed to it is on the floor there, and it just doesn't even, I mean, it just stops there. He didn't even bother connecting where he just said a second ago. We want it in the middle of the pad. See the middle? So take note of that. What he just said, we want it in the middle, and then up here, he puts it here. So, I mean, what kind of craziness is that? Then look over here. See that void? What the hell is that? So he just did whatever he did, and this that rebar that was already there. Maybe it goes back here and comes all the way over. But look at this rebar up high now. He just told us we want it in the middle. That's loose, and this just busted off. It's just nothing. It's already spalled off, so he can't even stay focused on drilling. Let's go.
There's a little bit of a droop over there. The pad wasn't concrete for the garage floor. Was not exactly sitting on the sand. I had to pack sand underneath all these corners here.
He said the concrete wasn't sitting on the sand. Well, sitting on it, all right. It wasn't contacting the sand. So he has a pad that's floating now. So this pad is floating. Initially, it was on the sand, as he stated. And then the retraction of the soil, because it's self-consolidating. Over years, soil can self-compact. And it does it through moisture drying out, and then the granules get closer together. And the amount is this much. And that's because the contractor, when he was building the walls, whatever walls they were, just throws back the fill. It's so they do not compact. And this is not compacted soil. In this case, sand, he said.
So the rebar's sitting down there in the middle. I'm using zip ties to kind of hold it up, so when I pour the concrete, it kind of sits in the middle to add some little bit of strength there. So there we at, ready to go. I'm done for the night. We're going to pour it in the morning. Cured concrete, and then we'll just let them sit there for 28 days. And when the 28 days is up, I'll bolt them back down. The nice part is it shouldn't take too long to get them in place. All I have to do is figure out where the
All right, remember that chip part? There it is right there. The chip concrete. So that's where his rebar is, right there near the top. There's some over here. His overturning is this direction towards us, towards this lift. It also has to rotate down. But it's going to be on having this lift. So you got a lever that you can pull. It will pull away, putting all the torque action near the bottom plate. Our bolts are here. Let me get you a little better bolts. Bolts are here, 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 and here. It looks like 5 bolts, maybe 2 in there, so 4 in the back. As you rotate that back towards it, when the car goes up again, it's still a force multiplier with the plate, putting a lot of stress right back here again. Looking to what he did, this can fold in the middle significantly easy because the rebar that he put in there only, as we recall, only goes in the back and over here. There's nothing tying these bars together like a mat. You didn't put a mat in there. All right, to make it all act as one, he's got some things that can go on there rotation wise. Now that said, the plate being how thick it is could put the reaction more like out here. So a little bit there. No, on the initial, I'm sorry, it would be here on the initial rotation. I'm behind it by 1x. So an initial rotation right here between the X's. Between it, the moment you come off of this back plate, off the floor, just a touch, you're now over here with the way this is set up. Unless you're getting a bent plate. If you don't have a bent plate, right? And there's the lift. Then the moment you rotate off, come off of this back bolt, you're at the front. And that's right there. This looks like drywall or something like that. I can't give him any anchorage ideals on that. But the top brace, he could put something across the top. But let's run it. I mean, actually he's done. He's not going to do this for 28 days, which is good. 28 days is good that he's going to wait on the 28 days. Full maturity, that's better safe than sorry. If he can wait, he can wait. I don't know what his mix was, fast setting or not. All right, take care, guys. Bye.